Chronicles with your host, Cosmoncal.
Create a gang is crazy. Boy, y'all better pay attention.
We fight as a single, impenetrable unit. That is the source of our strength.
Well, Israel, I think that they have way too much control in our government. And I think it is not coincidence that everybody that's been critical of Israel has, either been overthrown, Shah of Iran, like every single person that's been critical of Israel has either been killed or thrown out of power. And I don't think that that is a coincidence. The reason we fought a lot of these wars is because of Israel. Israel lied to us. They told us that there was weapons of mass destruction. We fought many wars on their behalf. So their influence cannot be, disputed. And the people that we continuously fight just happen to be their natural enemies, and they have influence on what we do. And that's my biggest issue. That's actually one of the reasons why I kind of started marching down this path, is because I see how much control Israel has over our government, and it's not healthy. And I see our politicians acting on behalf of Israel instead of on behalf of what is best for the United States. And that is, as a veteran, where I really have fucking, huge problems with this.
Oh, I'm sure you do, but when you say that what was it you said? That Jewish people said there were weapons of mass destruction. It was President Bush. He's not Jewish. It was Colin Powell. He wasn't Jewish, as far as I'm aware. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Well, you're talking about 0.2% of the population. So obviously every single person in there is not Jewish, but it is benefiting Jewish interests, and we are operating on behalf of Israel. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying all of our politicians are Jewish, obviously, but what I am saying is that Israel has dirt and blackmail on our politicians. That's the only way to explain why they put the interests of Israel above our countries. And you see that. Look, I truly believe that Epstein Island was a Mossad operation, and they have dirt on our politicians, and they've done plenty of these, and that is why they control our country. Explain it out. Why else would our country be doing everything in Israel's benefit to our own detriment? Israel doesn't do anything for us. Why would we be doing that?
But we know why America, and the UK for that matter, Tony Blair, because I spoke to him about it at length at the time. We know why they went to war with Saddam Hussein in 2003. They went because they believed he had weapons of mass destruction. They were the ones who argued it. None of the senior people that argued it for America or the UK, in terms of Tony Blair, George Bush, Colin Powell, were Jewish. This idea that somehow Israel was orchestrating that war, I think, is completely nonsensical. My brother fought in that war for the British Army. He wasn't ordered into that war by Israel. It was a decision taken by George Bush and Tony Blair. It just seems to me that when people have accused you, if they have, of being anti-Semitic, this is the reason why. Is because you look everywhere for a reason to blame Israel for absolutely everything, even when there's no evidence that it was Israel involved in the actual orders that were taken. There is no evidence that Israel ordered the Iraq war. It was taken by George Bush's administration with the help of people like Tony Blair.
Well, we went there because Netanyahu testified in front of Congress that they had weapons of mass destruction. Netanyahu testified in front of Congress that they had weapons of mass destruction. that they had weapons of mass destruction.
There
aren't legitimate questions about a potential operation against Iraq. Indeed, there are. But the question of whether removing Saddam's regime is itself legitimate is not one of them. And equally immaterial in my mind is the argument that America cannot oust Saddam without prior approval of the international community. Because this is a ruler who is rapidly expanding his arsenal of biological and chemical weapons. This is a dictator who has used these weapons of mass destruction against his subjects and his neighbors. And this is a tyrant who is feverishly trying to acquire nuclear weapons. The dangers posed by a nuclear-armed Saddam were understood by my country 2 decades ago, well before September 11th. In 1981, the late Prime Minister of Israel, Menachem Begin, dispatched the Israeli Air Force on a pre-dawn raid that destroyed the Iraqi nuclear reactor at Osirak. This probably took place months away from Saddam's ability to assemble the critical mass of plutonium for the first atomic bomb, or more than one. Now, at the time, Israel was condemned by all the world's government, even the government of our closest friend, the United States. But I think that over time, history has rendered a far kinder judgment on that act of unquestionable foresight and unmistakable courage. And I believe that it is history's judgment that should inform our own judgment today. Did Israel launch that preemptive strike because Saddam had committed a specific act of terror against us? Did we coordinate our actions with the international community? Did we condition this operation on the approval of the United Nations? No, of course not. Israel acted because it understood, we understood, that a nuclear-armed Saddam would place our very survival at risk.
U.S. Ambassador Brown that in effect asked for a U.S. commitment to end the Iraqi military threat?
Well, I don't get into diplomatic conversations, but I think I've stated our policy, and I think it's very much your policy. That is, the question is really, how do we ensure that these weapons of destruction, these missiles, these chemical weapons, the nuclear program that is fast accelerating in Iraq, that these do not pose a threat in the aftermath of the crisis, assuming it gets out of Kuwait.
And which was a total lie, and it was a lie to benefit Israel because that was an enemy of Israel. So what I'm saying is they're the beneficiary of what we are doing, and it's not in the best interest of the United States. So clearly they've got control over our politicians.
Yeah, to be clear again, though,
I'm not saying our politicians are Jewish. I'm saying our politicians are doing what they're telling them to do.
Right. Well, that's slightly different to what you did say. And you said on Patrick Ben Davis' podcast as well, they play the victim card so effing much about Jewish people. I mean, do you not understand why Jewish people might feel a sense of victimhood, given that 6 million of them were killed in World War II by a genocidal monster in the Holocaust? Do you not understand why that might make Jewish people feel that, yes, they have indeed been victims?
Yeah, I mean, that figure's been revised, but you know, I believe that Jewish supremacy is the greatest threat to America. And I think it's the greatest threat to the world today. I truly believe that.
What do you mean the figure's been revised? What do you mean?
Well, they said that it was 4 million that died in Auschwitz, and then they said it was down to 1 million. So they've revised the figure. Well, they said that it was 4 million that died in Auschwitz, and then they said it was down to 1 million. So they've revised the figure. It was 4 million that died in Auschwitz, and then they said it was down to 1 million. So they've revised the figure. And so they've revised the figure.
Poland agrees to change Auschwitz tablets after 50 years of deflecting the request of Jewish groups, the Polish government has agreed to change the wording on stone tablets at Auschwitz and Birkenau, the adjacent Nazi camps where more than 1 million Jews died during World War II. The move follows decades of appeals by Jewish groups who say the current plaques do not fully reflect the suffering of Jews there and focus too heavily on the camp's non-Jewish victims. So they're saying that, according to them, at Auschwitz, that number is highlighting those that were non-Jewish. But notice what they say. While thousands of non-Jews were among the estimated 1.5 million killed at Auschwitz, the victims were predominantly Jewish. This is the original tablet. 4 million people suffered and died here at the hands of the Nazis. Murders between the years 1940 and 1945 said 4 million. But then when we go to the newest or the more up-to-date plaque, it says here, forever let this place be a cry of despair and a warning to humanity, where the Nazis murdered about 1.5 million men, women, and children. But notice the wording here. It says mainly Jews. So even with this 1.5 million, it's saying they were not all from the Jewish community. It goes from 4 million to 1.5 million. So if you take 2.5 million and subtract that from 6 million, that's going to put you down to 3.5 million. That's just at Auschwitz. So according to the anti-Semitic laws, what they're saying is, if you say or give the proof that I just shared, that there was 2.5 million numbers removed from that overall 6 million number, that can be considered an exaggeration.
One of the things that we try to tell people, and that is, Black folks was in the Holocaust. Like when you were highlighting those two references, you know, in the reference it said non-Jewish. But family, what you have to know is that we were in that non-Jewish number. And truth be told, family, that like they don't know exactly, just like, you know, as far as like the number of Ashkenazis, they don't know exactly how many so-called Black folks was caught up in the Holocaust either, because one, you know, they weren't really documenting us. Because when it came to, you know, the persecution over in Germany, we had it the worst, family. There's articles out there, family, that talks about how POWs or camps where they kept the prisoners. Well, if a Black pilot was shot down, family, normally he wouldn't make it to the camp because they would just take him out back and shoot him, because that was the fate of so-called African Americans or so-called Black folks during that time, because Germans, family, they did not like Black folks at the time. So that's why our numbers during the Holocaust are massively undercounted, one. And then two, they don't tell you that the Holocaust started first in Africa.
Well, how many people? How many people do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
271,000 that died in Auschwitz.
How many do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
I don't know, but I would bet my entire net worth that it was under 6 million.
Again, I simply ask you, Dan, what's the motivation for making claims like that? What do you stand to gain by trying to diminish what happened in World War II?
I'm just answering your question. I mean, I'm a gambler, so if I think that, you know, something is a low probability, then I would bet on it. And I don't know for a fact, but the evidence all says that it was less than 6 million. I mean, just the mathematics don't work. Like, you can't cremate that many bodies. Like the whole, gas chamber thing, it's a very ineffective way to kill people. So when people have researched this and they've done the due diligence, they said it's mathematically impossible.
You see, I'm sorry, but I just find that unbelievably offensive. And I'm not even Jewish. You know, again, there is clear evidence that 6 million people, almost predominantly Jewish, were killed in the Holocaust. 12 million were killed by the Nazis in total. You know, they were a genocidal monstrosity of the Nazis who wanted to eliminate the Jewish people. And they tried extremely hard to do that. You said
12 million were killed?
The Nazis killed 12 million people in World War II. 6 million were killed in 6 million were killed in the Holocaust. Or do you not believe that either?
Okay. I mean, Jews have killed far more Christians. Well, Jews have killed far more. Let's just accept the 6 million figure. Jews have killed far more Christians than that. I mean, it's not even close. If you look at the Bolshevik genocide, you look at the Holodomor, I mean, they've killed way more Christians. I mean, they basically invented the genocide. So, you know, they deny the Armenian genocide. Israel denies that. They've lobbied the U.S. to deny that. I'm Armenian. They killed half of my people. So, you know, I'm not offended by that. You know, if somebody questions that, it's not some crazy thing. I mean, Israel denies the Armenian Holocaust. Okay.
It sounds to me, Dan, like you do actually hate Jewish people.
No, I believe that Jewish supremacy is the greatest threat to the world today. I look at what they're doing in the media. They're pushing this transgender nonsense. I mean, and they did it in Germany. The first transgender clinic was opened by a Jewish guy. And I don't like this perversion pushed on our children. I don't like the fact that 9-year-olds are reading about homosexual acts. I don't like that drag queens are reading them in schools. I don't like that Kamala Harris wants to pay for sex changes in prison so that men can turn into women and women can turn into men. And I don't like the fact that he's putting in, men into women's prisons, male rapists into women's prisons because they identify as women. I mean, it's just nonsense. I don't like, men beating up women in boxing and sports. I think it's all nonsense. And I think it's leading to a degradation of moral fiber. And if left unchecked, I think it's going to ruin the world.
But again, you're blaming Jewish people. Why?
Because they're pushing this.
What do you mean they're pushing it? What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, they're controlling the media. They're controlling the media.
They're controlling the media.
I mean, anti-Semitic statements are never good for anybody, right? It's kind of like being anti-black.
But, it's really interesting. I didn't realize that I could be considered anti-Semitic until I read one of the definitions of anti-Semitism. Look at this. The definition says, making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews as such, or the power of Jews as a collective, such as, especially, but not exclusively. This sounds like a unethical mind. Right, so it says, think about it, that sounds like the type of wording that's in the contracts, right?
Indeed.
Okay, it says, such as, especially, but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions.
Isn't that what you said? That Jews run everything?
Yeah, but that actually is considered to be anti-Semitic.
Right.
So I didn't realize that it was anti-Semitic to say, hey, I have a Jewish attorney, I have a Jewish record label, I have a Jewish contractor, I have a
Do you regret your statements?
What statements you think you should be walking back? I mean, considering...
What do you mean walking back?
Well, backing up off of them. I mean, the thing is, you've lost a lot of endorsements. People are dropping you. You're getting, vilified. I mean, you might think you're right, but I think, there's a whole world out there that's condemning you for what you said.
Okay, so this right here is a chart of Universal Studios, 20th Century Fox, ABC News, CBS News, Columbia Pictures, Warner Brothers, ESPN Sports, Fox News, Washington Post, Metro Goldwyn Mayer, MTV Music Television, Nickelodeon, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Comedy Central, NBC Entertainment, Google, what else do we have? Disney, ABC Kids and Family, YouTube, Los Angeles Times, Discovery Network, Paramount Pictures, Facebook, Huffington Post, Yahoo, Marvel, Hulu, Cosmopolitan, Time, Touchstone, Associated Press, Pixar, Miramax, HBO, New York Post, LucasArts, MSNBC, DreamWorks Animation. Now, the thing is, I skipped over maybe about 5 of them because it was just unclear on this list. The red are the executives that are Jewish at these companies.
Do you think they stuck together when they heard what you said? Is that what happened?
Well, I mean, they're controlling the media. They're controlling the media.
They're controlling the media.
To all my Jewish friends, my Jewish brothers and sisters, stand tall. Stand tall. Do not let this fear, this sadness, this anxiety, and this dread overwhelm you. Draw strength from your family, from your friends, from your ancestors, and the worldwide bond that we share that has always put the battery in your back. We're used to being looked at as different because that's what we are. We are different, and that's a good thing. I know that Jews are looked at as weak, but we're stronger than you can imagine. That's why you hurl propaganda. We control all the money. We control the media because it's plausible. It's plausible because we're just that good. Smart, compassionate, moral, and strong people. And we need to stand taller than ever against all those sick, dumb, uneducated black tar in their blood who hate Jews because they ain't. You hate us because you ain't us. It's always been hurled our way. Hate, prejudice has always been hurled our way. And a lot of times we deal with it with compassion or the understanding that it might be mental illness. Yo, if 20 American tourists, 20 American tourists, forget the 1,200 people that were murdered, slaughtered, civilians. If 20 American civilians, all African American, all black, all ages, were taken hostage, and 10 of them were murdered and raped, and there was 10 surviving American tourist hostages that were all black. There's not one film in this country that would be talking about ceasefire. There's not one person. It would be bring the hostages back, and they better be alive. They better be pristine. There wouldn't be no ceasefire. There would be no run. Can you imagine college students ripping down posters of 10 black people from America if they were taken hostage and 10 others were raped and murdered? Nobody would be saying this. The African American community would be demanding they came back. White people, black people, Jewish people would be demanding they come back. There wouldn't be a discussion of a ceasefire. That's a fact. Nobody can tell me that is not a fact. Forget the 1,200 other people that were murdered. I'm talking about just 10.
I mean, they're controlling the media. I mean, the DEI is being pushed by BlackRock. BlackRock's execs are all Jewish. You look at where this is coming from. It's not a surprise.
Dan,
all the Disney execs are Jewish.
Dan,
they're pushing it on children.
Do you accept, Dan, that you are just blatantly anti-Semitic?
Look, I have an issue with that term. I mean, I think the real Semites are the Palestinians. I mean, the DNA test that they've done on the Israelis that are living over there, they're Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews. I don't even think they're actual Semites. They don't have ancient Hebrew DNA, which is why DNA testing is illegal in Israel. DNA testing is illegal in Israel.
DNA testing is illegal in Israel.
Today, it is prohibited, and you can Google this, to do a DNA test in Israel. Totally forbidden. Wrong. It's illegal. It's a crime. You'll be jailed if you do a DNA test in Israel. Why? Because they know the truth will come out. You come from Poland, you come from Ukraine, you came from Europe, you came from everywhere else. And they were the original Middle Eastern Jews who lived together with the Muslims and the Christians for centuries. For centuries. So what happened to a lot of the Jews?
I'm about to show you something extremely controversial. It's even illegal in the state of Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that.
This TikTok caused a storm online, with many debating what his results, which show no trace of being from Palestine or the Middle East, despite being Jewish, mean.
I don't even think they're actual Semites. They don't have ancient Hebrew DNA, which is why DNA testing is illegal in Israel.
Want to fully understand your family genealogy? Not without a court order. And this is Jerusalem Post. This is their publication. Want to fully understand your family genealogy? Not without a court order. According to some ancestry websites, there are indicators to tell you if you possess Jewish DNA or not. If you live in Israel and want to find out where your family comes from, what do? One thing is for certain, any ancestry kit from the local pharmacy is out of the question, according to Yediot Aharonot report. While millions of such kits have been sold in the United States, Israelis are forbidden to buy ancestry DNA kits from the store without presenting a court order, as the Israeli government controls these types of purchases due to the genetic information law.
This story begins in October 1949, 1 year after Israel's formation. This is when Netanyahu was born, the second child of a historian. His paternal grandfather was a rabbi and a Zionist writer. His name was Nathan Milikowski. Later in life, he Hebraized his surname from Milikowski to Netanyahu, a name which means God has given.
This is Yair Netanyahu's DNA test that has been leaked. You can see right there, his Y DNA is RM198. Descendants of RM198 come from Poland, Russia, Germany, and other European countries. Does this look Semitic to you? Does this look Middle Eastern?
You know, the DNA test that they've done on the Israelis that are living over there, they're Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews.
DNA testing to prove Jewish ancestry is a hot-button political issue in Israel. For example, Israel's chief rabbinate has pushed for the ancestry DNA tests to be allowed to prove Jewishness in certain cases. In particular, many Jews who have emigrated to Israel from the Soviet Union, who may not have had the necessary paperwork that shows they are Jewish, have sought to get genetic tests done to show they are Jews. In 2019, a political scandal erupted when it appeared Russian Jews were secretly submitting DNA tests to the rabbinate in order to obtain the right to move to Israel.
You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now immigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken, okay? It's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Michael Brown, I am Caucasian. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history.
You know, the DNA test that they've done on the Israelis that are living over there, they're Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews. I don't even think they're actual Semites. They don't have ancient Hebrew DNA.
Anyone ever heard of the word anti-Semitic? What's that mean? What does that mean? Against who? Against the who? Say it one more time. Against the who? If you're anti-Semitic, you're against Jews. Where'd that come from? You know, anti-Semitic, the word only goes back to the late 1800s. As it relates to being anti-Jewish. Now, okay, now, don't throw your rocks at me. But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic? But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Michael Brown, I am Caucasian.
I am Caucasian.
I am Caucasian.
But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
You can convert to Judaism. You can't convert to a blood family. You cannot convert to a race. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is.
Judaism is a religion. That's all it is.
But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
Without getting too semantic, or at the risk of getting too semantic, does it matter that the Jews are not Semites, or does this phrase anti-Semitism just means hatred for the Jewish people? They're Ashkenazi, they're Eastern European Jews.
But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
So they admit right there that while the such title does not cover discrimination based solely on religion, which is what being Jewish is a religion. That's what it is. Being Jewish is a religion. That's what it is.
Being Jewish is a religion. That's what it is.
But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
They sat down to create a language because nations need languages. And we will try to convince the Jewish people, forget about this religion stuff, it's nationality. Support Israel, fight in the army, then you're a good Jew. That way, we will be real men. We will be purified of our Jewiness. We will be purified of our Jewiness.
Of our Jewiness.
Of our Jewiness. Of our Jewiness.
But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
They're not Semites at all. They're not Semites at all.
They're not Semites at all.
In fact, most of them are communists from Russia.
But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
I just had a rabbi give me an analogy. He said, look, imagine you left your home and then someone came and occupied it, and then you try to get it back, and then they went to the judge. Have you heard some of these analogies? Maybe you can.
Yeah, that's assuming that, that's taking it into a place which I don't usually go. That's making the assumption that today's Jews are really the descendants of the ancient Hebrews that used to live in that part of the world some 3,000 years ago. That's making the assumption that today's Jews are really the descendants of the ancient Hebrews that used to live in that part of the world some 3,000 years ago.
That's making the assumption that today's Jews are really the descendants of the ancient Hebrews that used to live in that part of the world some 3,000 years ago.
But how is it that only white Jews get to be referred to as Semitic?
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israel, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time, all that he said.
I know. We don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites, or you want to be Jews? Do you want to remain ancient Israelites, or you want to be Jews? Do you want to remain ancient Israelites, or you want to be Jews?
And here's what I would like to say to you, Rabbi, since you're quoting scripture, okay? The one that's relevant to me is woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And if you'd like to dive into a little more scripture, I think what's relevant is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And
wait. That hurt.
I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie.
Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie.
Hadouken! I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley.
And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley.
The fact that you would try to say, I am Jewish, and this is what I believe, and do and say the things that you are doing. People can see and hear evil, and what you are doing right now is an act of evil. The lies that you are telling, not just on me, but also on my family members, are a good example for the world to see what we are referring to when we call something radical Zionism.
Current day Israel is not the bloodline of the biblical Israel tribes.
And so when he's saying he's coming to redeem, while he would say, redeem Israel, oh God, out of all their troubles. First thing they need to be redeemed at, more dangerous than Hamas, more dangerous than Muslim neighbors, are internal, these, and there's another biblical name, these who say they are Jews and are not.
I was going to ask you about that in Revelation 3:8. I think I was going to ask you that question. Does that refer to this time, or can it refer to this time?
It can. It's Revelation 3:9. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Yeah. And there's a different application for it, but we understand this is really there's a practical storyline I've shared before on a program maybe a year ago, I don't know, about the Khazarian mafia and the Khazarian Jews, and I'll just say the briefest understanding of it and how this applies to them, because it's about 1,000 years ago. Really, these are almost like marauding tribes, not like tribes of the tribe of Israel, but they're based out of the Ukraine, ironically or not, based out of Kiev. And these were those that would go around, take new lands, and they were known, they had brought the Babylonian religion with them. They were doing cannibalism, human trafficking, no boundaries, sex interaction. They were so wicked that the story goes that he who led, I believe he was a czar of Russia, when he had won a battle against him, gave him an option. And in some way or another, this is a truth that they were told, again, 1,000 years ago, you must choose a religion. You all are worthless people. You're not training your kids into any kind of civility, reasonableness. And he gave them a choice of the three Abrahamic religions, and the three Abrahamic religions being either, at the time we'd say Catholicism, Christianity, the other one is Islam, and the other was Judaism. And so they, in a very pragmatic way, the Khazarians chose Judaism because the Pope was and the Vatican, they were very hands-on, forcible conversions. And so it was not a light thing to go under that, nor was it Islam. It's a heavy yoke on both, and so Judaism would leave them alone, and so they did some things of incorporating some level of they weren't, first of all, they were not Semite.
The DNA tests that they've done on the Israelis that are living over there, they're Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews. I don't even think they're actual Semites. They don't have ancient Hebrew DNA.
Let's conduct an unbiased investigation to reveal the extent of these connections, beginning with a detailed mapping of the Khazarians. So let's start with locating Magog. This is coming from the Easton's Bible Dictionary. Magog, region of Gog, the second of the sons of Japheth. In Ezekiel, it is the name of a nation, probably some Scythian or Tartar tribe descended from Japheth. They are described as skilled horsemen and expert in the use of the bow. The late Father Jerome says that this word denotes Scythian nation, fierce and innumerable, who live beyond the Caucasus and the Lake Maeotis and near the Caspian Sea, and spread out even onward to India. See, according to the table of nations in the scriptures, Magog is the second son of Japheth. Let's confirm this by going to Genesis chapter 10, starting at verse 1. It reads, "Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were the sons born after the flood, the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus." According to the Easton's Bible Dictionary, 1894, Magog is also connected to the Scythians. So who are the Scythians? This is coming from the Britannica Online. This is what it says about the Scythians. Scythian, also called Scyth, Saka, Sake, member of a nomadic people, originally of Iranian stock, known from as early as the 9th century BCE, who migrated westward from Central Asia to southern Russia and Ukraine in the 8th and 7th century BCE. The Scythians founded a rich, powerful empire centered on what is now Crimea. So again, who are the Scythians? This is coming from an article titled Localizing Ashkenazic Jews to Primeval Villages in the Ancient Iranian Lands of Ashkenaz. It reads, an analysis of 393 Ashkenazic, Iranian, and Mountain Jews and over 600 non-Jewish genomes demonstrated that Greeks, Romans, Iranians, and Turks exhibit the highest genetic similarity with Ashkenazi Jews. The geographic population structure analysis localized most Ashkenazi Jews along major primeval trade routes in northern Turkey adjacent to primeval villages with names that may be derived from Ashkenaz. Iranian and Mountain Jews were localized along trade routes on the Turkey's eastern border. Loss of maternal haplogroups was evident in non-Yiddish speaking Ashkenazi Jews. Our results suggest that Ashkenazi Jews originated from a Slavo-Iranian confederation, which the Jews called Ashkenazic. An example, Scythians. Though these Jews probably spoke Persian and or Osseti, this is compatible with linguistic evidence suggesting that Yiddish is a Slavic language created by Irano-Turco-Slavic Jewish merchants along the Silk Roads as a cryptic trade language spoken only by its originators. So again, who are the Scythians? The Anchor Bible Dictionary, Volume 1, definition of Ashkenaz, it reads, Ashkenaz, first descendant of Gomer, who is the first offspring of Japheth in the Table of Nations. In Jeremiah 51:27, Ashkenaz appears along with Ararat and many as a kingdom called upon to oppose Babylon. The name is identified as the Neo-Assyrian Ishkuza, who appeared between the Black and Caspian Seas in the 8th and 7th century BC, driving out the Cimmerians. In other words, Gomer. This association is reflected in Genesis 10 and threatening the Assyrians. For Herodotus, these people came to be called Scythians. The correspondence of the consonants Ashkenaz, Ishkuza, and Scythian is obvious, although cultural associations reach back into the 3rd and 2nd millennium BC. Present archaeological evidence for a distinctive Scythian culture begins in the 7th century BC, especially at Nimirov, Gorodish. Possible portrayals of Scythians appear on 9th century reliefs of Ashur-Nasirpal II, but the first Neo-Assyrian mention of the Ishkuza occurs during the time of Sargon II in the 8th century BC. Driving back the Cimmerians, the Scythians were able to push south to dominate Asia and Media in the latter part of the 7th century BC. About this time, a Scythian raid against Egypt was stopped by Psammetichus II. For the later history of the Scythians and the question of their identification with the enemy from the north mentioned in the first part of Jeremiah, and it tells us to go see the Scythians. So according to the Anchor Bible Dictionary, the Scythians are the descendants of Ashkenaz. Let's see the definition of Scythians. Biblical scholars sometimes associate the Scythians with Ashkenaz and with the bringers of destruction. In the prophecies of Jeremiah and Zephaniah, outside the Hebrew Bible, their reputation for savagery is alluded to in 2nd Maccabees 4:47, 3rd Maccabees 7:5, 4th Maccabees 10:7, and Colossians chapter 3, verse 11. The Scythians called Ashguze by the Assyrians apparently first appeared in written history in the annals of Esarhaddon and seemed to be centered at that time in what is today northwest Iran. According to Herodotus, the Scythians ruled over all the Near East for 28 years after entering the area from the north. Traditionally, this period of rule is assigned to the 7th or 6th century BC. The Scythians continue to be mentioned in the texts of the Babylonians, Persians, and Greeks as allies and as enemies through the 4th century BC. By the 3rd century BC, Scythian presence in the Near East is restricted to the Crimea and the shores of the Black Sea. Ovid records Scythian life in the 1st century AD.
As far as the alleged conversion of the Khazaris, you can read it in Yehuda Halevi's book, The Khazari, that it may be true that as there is debate and discussion, there are Turkic people a little over 1,000 years ago, that some of the leaders or some of the people did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people. Some of the leaders or some of the people did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people.
Did, in fact, convert to Judaism and then became part of the larger Jewish people.
Khazars as a whole disappear from history. That's it. End of subject. There is no Khazarian mafia. There's not a single Jew on the planet that can be traced back in any definitive way to the Khazars. Zero.
Are you familiar with the Khazar theory? There's a theory, it's widely accepted as anti-Semitic, that Ashkenazi Jews come from the Khazars and they're not Levantine. But DNA tests.
It's not anti-Semitic. It's a question of fact. So Shlomo Sand, for example, has argued that, I think probably exaggerated, but it's simply a question of fact. If my ancestors from the Ukraine have Khazar roots, changes nothing. I'm Jewish. My grandfather was Jewish. My family happens to have a story saying that we're descended from the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, that's part of the culture. Doesn't matter what the DNA shows.
This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society, they disappear. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. A little over 1,000 years ago. A couple thousand years ago. A little over 1,000 years ago. They're all gone, disappear from history. They're all gone, disappear from history.
They're all gone a couple thousand years ago.
You say, well, where the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now immigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. So they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz.
So they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz.
And they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin.
Michael Brown, I am Caucasian. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history.
You know, the DNA tests that they've done on the Israelis that are living over there, they're Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews. I don't even think they're actual Semites. They don't have ancient Hebrew DNA.
So the Scythians occupy what's called modern-day Russia and Ukraine. There is another group who is connected to both the Russians and Ukraine. They are called the Khazars. The Ashkenazi Jews are the East European Jews, which were found in Poland, Russia, Germany, and West Asia. The Jewish Encyclopedia of 1905 revealed that the main stock of the Jews came from this people known as Khazars. Khazars, a people of Turkish origin, whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginnings of the history of the Jews of Russia. The kingdom of the Khazars was firmly established in most of South Russia long before the foundation of the Russian monarchy by the Varangians. Jews have lived lived on the shores of the Black and Caspian Seas since the 1st century of the Common Era. Historical evidence points to the region of the Ural as the home of the Khazars. Among the classical writers of the Middle Ages, they were known as the Khazars, Khazirs, Akadzirs, and Akatirs. Let's go to another source, Tracing Lost History from the Caucasus to Europe by Dr. Kolja Spori. It reads, to the origins of Europeans and Jews. According to some scientists, large parts of the so-called European or Caucasian civilizations, including the Indo-European languages, originally come from the area between the Caucasus and the Volga, in other words, the Caspian and Pontic steppe. Ashkenazi Jewry, deriving from the ancient Khazars, can also be traced back to the same area. I embarked on an overland trip from the Caspian Sea to the Caucasus to Central Europe, following in the footsteps of our ancestors to learn more about our history on a road trip from east to west. So in this source, the migration of these people are comparable to the movement of a serpent. Peep this out. The Volker Wanderung is usually described as a nation's migration period of Germanic people from east to west, pushed forward by climatic changes and or enemies of the Asian steppes like the Huns. And another Volker-Wanderung view, this migration is rather seen as invasions of joint Turco-Gothic forces. In a more delicate interpretation, the invading steppe forces were manipulating with an invisible hand the sheep-like resident people into nation building. In other words, Nat equals snake, symbol of rebirth. The words for settlements and places like the Stan states, Istanbul, Astana, Istana, which means palace, stanza, Italian equals space, distance, in other words, between two spaces, to me seem etymologically closely related just as much as the separation lines in between Grenitsa, in other words, Slavic border, Ukraine border land, and Rens, in other words, German, all strangely connected through Old High German. Now let's deal with Meshach. Who is Meshach? This is coming from the Oxford Bible Church, UK. It reads, regarding Meshach and Tubal, some assign a Russian identification connecting these two nations with the modern Russian cities of Moscow and Tobolsk. Meshach, Moscow, and Tubal, Tobolsk. The first view became well known through the Schofield Study Bible, that the primary reference is to the northern powers headed by Russia, all agree. The reference to Meshach and Tubal, in other words, Moscow and Tobolsk, is a clear mark of identification. Thus, the name Moscow derives from the tribal name Meshach, and Tobolsk, the name of the principal state, from Tubal. This view is partly based on the similarity of the sound in these names and their close proximity to Rosh, in other words, Russia. If this is so, the names Meshach and Tubal point directly to Russia, being identified as Moscow, the capital of modern Russia, and Tobolsk in Asiatic Russia. Modern Tobolsk was founded in 1587 in western Siberia, and from there, the Cossacks rode eastward to open up all of Siberia to Russian domination. Meshach and Tubal would then be names standing for Russia and Europe and Asia. L. Sale Harrison corroborated this identification on linguistic grounds. Ethnologists, historians who track the migration of people, tells us after the flood, the Japhethites migrated from Asia Minor to the north beyond the Caspian and Black Seas. They settled in the area of Rosh that we know today as Russia. Wilhelm Gesenius, the world-class Hebrew scholar whose Hebrew lexicon has never been surpassed, said God is undoubtedly the Russians. He also identified Meshech as Moscow, the capital of modern Russia. Tubal he identified as Tobolus, the earliest province in Asiatic Russia to be colonized, and also the name of the city in which Peter the Great built the old fortress after the pattern of the Kremlin in Moscow. Meshech was founder of the Mashi, a barbarous people who dwelt in the Martian mountain. He went on to say that the Greek name Mashi, derived from the Hebrew Meshech, is the source of the name for the city of Moscow. In discussing Tubal, he said Tubal is the son of Rapheth, founder of the Tibereni, a people dwelling on the Black Sea to the west of the Mashi. So let's go to the Testaments of the Grand Prince of Moscow, page 279. It reads, the Meshera were a Finno-Ugaric tribe. Their descendants have either been Russified or have amalgamated with Bashkirs. Some of the Mordvins call themselves Meshers. Their name is present in the city of Meshkovsk, a Kaluga district. Now let's go to the Eastern Bible Dictionary and let's see how Meshech is defined. Meshech, drawn out of the sixth son of Japheth, the founder of a tribe. They were in all probability of Moshi, a people inhabiting Moshian mountains between the Black and Caspian seas. In the 120th book of Psalms, verse 5, the name occurs as simply a synonym for foreigners or barbarians. During the ascendancy of the Babylonians and Persians in Western Asia, the Moshi were subdued, but it seems probable that a large number of them crossed the Caucasus range and spread over the northern steppes, mingling with the Scythians. There they became known as Muscovs and gave that name to the Russian nation and its ancient capital, by which they are still generally known throughout the East. We have demonstrated that Russians, Ukrainians, Ashkenazis, who are Germans, Khazarians, and Scythians share a common heritage. Now let's include another related group, the Vikings. The connection is made through an unknown Germanic tribe called the Jutes. Who are the Jutes? This is coming from the Etymology Dictionary online. This is their definition of Jutes. It reads, Jute, one of the ancient Germanic inhabitants of Juteland, the peninsula between modern Germany and Denmark, who with the Angles and the Saxons invaded Britain in the 5th century. Traditionally, they were said to have settled in Kent and Hampshire. The name is related to Old Norse, Eotar, related Jutish. I know exactly what you guys are thinking because I shared the same curiosity. Is there a coincidence that Jutes, Jutish, sounds like Jew, Jewish? Who are the Jutes? This is coming from the Antiquity of Jot race, tracing the ancestry to the Scythians of antiquity, page 12 and 13. It reads, this fact is further proved by their unparalleled bravery because Jutes were the first conquerors of Britain, even when later on Saxons invaded the shore of Southampton water. They could not succeed without reinforcement by a body of Jutes who formed settlements of their own in the Isle of Wight. And on the mainland, the historical material of those times is so meager that some historians confuse Saxons with Jutes as belonging to the same race. Although not only was the race different, but even the territory where they lived was quite separate. Jutes were Scythian Jots, while Angles and Saxons belonged to Teutonic race. Let me read that again. Jutes were Scythian Jots, while Angles and Saxons belong to Teutonic race. So the Jutes are Scythian Jots. So are the Jutes really Scythians? Danes, Vikings, or Normans by H.G. Wells in The Outline of History in chapter 32, section 4 says that there were very small racial and social differences between Angles, Saxon, Jute, Dane, or Norman, as mentioned at number 4 above. He has confused Angles and Saxons who belong to Teutonic race with Jutes, Danes, and Normans who belong to Scythian race. The fact that they were allies in their raids upon Britain is not enough for their racial confusion. Vikings were called Northmen because they lived in the north, while Angles and Saxons lived in the south. Northmen ultimately were abbreviated into Normans. So again, are the Jutes, who are actually Scythian Jots, really connected to the Vikings? Is this true? In 912, an expedition of these Normans under Rolf the Ganger established itself upon the coast of France in the region that was known henceforth as Normandy or North Mandy. There was a fresh conquest of England by the Danes, and the Norman Duke of Normandy became King of England. This will be mentioned in detail in another chapter. Here, I am concerned only with the fact that Danes, Vikings, or Normans were all Jutes. Let me read that again. Here, I am concerned only with the fact that Danes, Vikings, or Normans were all Jutes. They were all different names of the same race of Scythian Jots. The Chinese called them Yuchi. These Yuchi conquered the slightly Hellenized kingdoms of Bactria and mixed with Aryan people there. Later on, these Yuchi became or were merged with Aryan elements into a people called the Indo-Scythians, who went on down the Khyber Pass and conquered northern portions of India as far as Benares, wiping out the last vestiges of Hellenic rule in India. This big splash over the Mongolian races westward was probably not the first of such splashes, but it is the first recorded splash. See, I believe that what I just shared with you guys also suggests that the term Jew may have its origins in the Germanic tribe known as the Scythian Jutes, who are also referred to as the Vikings.
You know, the DNA tests that they've done on the Israelis that are living over there, they're Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews. I don't even think they're actual Semites. They don't have ancient Hebrew DNA.
First, let me, when you see Ashkenazi Jews sharing high similarity to Romanians and Hungarians, this is because both of these populations were offshoots of the Khazars. They were both founded by these members of the Caucasus who ruled this area of north of the Black Sea, where we have South Russia nowadays, between the 7th and 13th centuries. Very powerful empire. They converted to Judaism in the 8th century, and they sent offshoots to Eastern Europe. And we still some Ashkenazi Jews are mapped to this region of Ukraine. They're not all mapped to Ashkenaz. Most of them are, but some of them are mapped to Ukraine, and we can see very nicely some kind of migration routes using GPS.
Truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No. It's not about race. No, it's about
a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about.
But it's about white supremacy. It's about
but
going
it's
after
not
Jews
about
and
race. But these are two
Romans.
white groups of people.
Well, they were after black people
see
too.
them as white men.
But you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other. It's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, because black, white, Jews, everybody eats each other.
Well, joining us for our weekly segment, Bottom Line, is Algemeiner CEO Dovid Efune. So, Dovid, let's jump right in. Genetically speaking, are Jews white?
Well, Natasha, it's important to understand, firstly, the intense sensitivity that this question has for the Jewish community. And actually, it's coming up at a personally very relevant time for me. Today is the anniversary of the passing of my great-grandfather, David Weinstock, who was arrested by the Nazis in Vienna in September 1939. And he was taken to the anthropological department at the Vienna Museum of Natural History, and he was subjected to, together with 440 other Jews, to degrading tests and measurements because he was considered by the Nazis to be of an inferior race. So it really is the height of irony and insult that when Jews express concern about anti-Semitism being ignored and a blindness to anti-Semitism, they're then lumped into the white category.
So when did the Jewish community become a race? Let me ask that again. When did the Jewish community become a race? Is a Jew or Jewish a race? This is coming from a Jewish publication called The Forward. And this is an article they wrote back in 2017. The title of this article is, Can 23andMe tell us if Jews are a race? And is that a good thing? Written by Ari Feldman. And again, July 30th, 2017. And it reads, Can 23andMe tell us if Jews are a race, and is that a good thing? Learning your genetic makeup has never been easier than it is in 2017. For less than the cost of a doctor's visit, some people are trying to use the service to find out if or to what extent they're Jewish, a phenomenon that worries historians and scientists. Buyers of mail-order gene testing kits do get solid information from them. They learn where their ancestors were living 9 generations ago. Some have even found living but long lost family members. The danger, experts say, is that in relying on these kits to learn more about their genes, users are perpetrating the notion that Jews are a race, a concept they say has no scientific basis. So again, users are perpetrating the notion that Jews are a race, a concept they say has no scientific basis. Is this quote true? Let's confirm this by going to Anthropology Newsletter, The Origin of the Idea of Race by Audrey Smedley, who is a world-renowned anthropologist, November 1999. And it reads, Contemporary scholars agree that race was a recent invention and that it was essentially a folk idea, not a product of scientific research and discovery. This is not new to anthropologists.
Being Jewish is a religion. That's what it is. Being Jewish is a religion. That's what it is.
Being Jewish is a religion. That's what it is.
You can convert to Judaism. You can't convert to a blood family. You cannot convert to a race. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is. Judaism is a religion. That's all it is.
Judaism is a religion. That's all it is.
So let's go back to The Forward. Can 23andMe tell us if Jews are a race? And is that a good thing? It reads, the idea of race has historically slotted humans into a handful of categories: Asian, African, white, etc. But research has shown that there can be as much genetic differences within these races as between them. And experts say the notion that one skin tone and facial features alone can predict social behavior is plain wrong. It's really important for all of us to resist the attempt to revive this discredited notion that race is a biological category rather than a political and social category, said Marcy Darnowski, director of the Center for Genetics and Society, a not-for-profit scientific ethics group. Now, these are some of the examples that this article posted of Ashkenazi Jews who use 23andMe to confirm their ethnicity, to confirm what race they belong to. This is a post by Jonathan Paul. Mine came back and basically told me I am extremely white. Mine is a bit of Ashkenazi Jewish heritage, which is kind of dope because Gal Gadot, and that's the actress who played Wonder Woman. Here's another example they used by Abigail Jaffe. It says, I am 98% Ashkenazi, says 23andMe, and 99.7% European. that is white. And someone responded to her from within the Ashkenazi community, posted this: I am Ashkenazi Jew, and I'm most definitely not a person of color. Never thought I'd have to clear that up, but then they post a link to blogs.timesofisrael.com, which is another Jewish publication. This article made an attempt to say that the Ashkenazi Jewish community, they are a people of color. And then they highlighted actors and actresses and famous people from within that community. They photoshopped, in other words, they toned down their appearance to make them appear to be people of color. I'll post a link inside the description box. So again, resist the attempt to revive this discredited notion that race is a biological category rather than a political and social category. So let's skip down to another part of this article. It reads, Ashkenazic Jews often find themselves in the peculiar situation of being 90% Ashkenazi Jewish and 99% European. Sephardic Jews may be told they are mostly Middle Eastern and North African and less than 10% Ashkenazic. Stuart Schaufman, a travel writer and blogger who writes under the name, and I'm not going to pronounce the full name because of the vulgarity, but Broke Blank Stewart, said he brought a kid from 23andMe because even though his family insists they're exclusively Jewish, he thought there was a possibility that he has some non-Jewish ancestry. I was curious because you never know, said Schaufman. Family stories are just stories. Schaufman, who learned that he is 99.8% Ashkenazi Jewish, said the test hasn't made much of a difference on his sense of Jewish identity. Judaism really informed who I am and my values and my worldview, Schaufman said. 23andMe hasn't made me more or less Jewy at all. I'm just Jewy.
They sat down to create a language because nations need languages. And we will try to convince the Jewish people, forget about this religion stuff, it's nationality. Support Israel, fight in the army, then you're a good Jew. That way, we will be real men. We will be purified of our Jewiness. We will be purified of our Jewiness. Of our Jewiness. Of our Jewiness. Of our Jewiness.
I mean, you're literally denying their existence now. I mean, you are just a brazen anti-Semite, aren't you? You hate Jewish people, you hate Israel, you hate the state of Israel, its government, everything about it. You're blaming them you blame them in this interview for literally absolutely everything.
When you say, well, I think most of the problems today is caused by Jewish supremacy. I believe that.
I'm honestly gobsmacked that you would say all this publicly, given what a high profile you have.
Yeah, I mean, it is not a it's not a popular opinion for somebody that, cares about money and cares about, not being canceled. I mean, that's the problem, is you can say whatever you want against Muslims. You can be, super anti-Muslim. You can talk about them and nobody cares. But if you say anything about Jewish people, you get canceled. They, look what they did to Kanye.
What's up, my guy? It's good to see you. You know what it is? We won. Hey, congrats. We won. That's it. We did number one. Number one, all over the world. You know what it is? I heard you made $19 million off that Super Bowl ad, too. Well, that's, the people have always wanted that, and I went to different companies, and they would never let me bring it like that. It was always ways that they were blocking us from hitting the prices. So I had to leave from those companies. And, I was two months, I'm gonna just be honest with y'all, I was 2 months from going bankrupt. Really? And I put everything I had into it. We moved to Italy, we moved to the factories, and we survived. We survived through the cancellation. We're back number one. Do you think the controversy helped you? It wasn't about the controversy. It was about the ability to say how you felt out loud. And if I didn't have the various skill sets of music and clothing and the fan base, they would have been able to destroy me. But because we had all those skill sets, somehow I'm here inside of this universe able to fight.
You can't be destroyed, it would appear.
Thank you. Love you. Love you. I love all the people that support it. And you know what I'm saying? We needed to have something that was Apple level. You know, where's the Apple level? It's just me and my bro Elon. That's it. You know what I'm saying?
Some of the streaming platforms removed you.
We number one. Right. We number one. You know, everything that they did only helped us. I like it. Remove us. I like simplification.
Yeah, I mean, it is not a it's not a popular opinion for somebody that, you know, cares about money and cares about, you know, not being canceled. I mean, that's the problem, is you can say whatever you want against Muslims. You can be, you know, super anti-Muslim. You can talk about them and nobody cares. But if you say anything about Jewish people, you get canceled. They, you know, look what they did to Kanye.
Jesus, can you hear me? I don't know where else to turn it. I'm desperate. I need your help.
I can hear you, my son. I have always been listening.
Who are you?
Some of the stuff I was saying was true. So until y'all come up and say, yo, what he was saying, some of that was true, then go ahead with all that.
Do you take back any of the anti-Semitic stuff you might have said?
Black people can't be anti-Semitic. We are Jew. Black people can't be anti-Semitic. We are Jew.
Black people can't be anti-Semitic. We are Jew.
And that, my friends, is called hypocrisy. A black man can steal your stereo, but he can't be your savior.
Again, I'm going to repeat. I don't know how the label becomes justified, because you guys ask me the same questions over and over again. But this is not going to turn into a spin around cycle, questions upon questions. I told you guys how I felt. I respect all walks of life and embrace all walks of life. That's where I sit.
I think what people want to hear, though, is just a yes or no on that question. Yes or no.
I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from.
The entire Bible is about black people. Not only was Jesus black, but every character in the Bible seems to be black too. Yeah, Zephaniah and Jeremiah and Jebediah, those all aren't white people names, okay? And Jesus wasn't some tan, partially melanated Middle Eastern person either. I'm talking straight up black dude, okay? Even in the book of Revelation, when you get the vision of Daniel, he's describing someone with feet like burnt brass and white woolly hair, and we've got the deep running water voice with the red eyes, and you guys, he's black. The Jewish people are black people, like Kanye was right.
So
That's been proved.
So the Jewish people in Israel will be referred to as the descendants of the Jewish people in Africa, and not not the other way around.
Not on the other way. Difficult to make it admitted by them. Difficult to make it admitted by them. Difficult to make it admitted by them.
Black people can't be anti-Semitic. We are Jew. You understand what I'm saying? We are Jew. So cool out until you do your facts. Until you really do the facts with the fake indoctrination that y'all pull into the schools and all that. You know what I'm saying? We're not following y'all rules. The most dangerous place for a black person in America is actually in our mother's stomachs, because 50% of black deaths a year in America is abortion currently.
Hitler was, and the Nazis, of course, expanded on Margaret Sanger's approach to eugenics, right? Eugenics was a movement that was born in the United States under hard doctrines of racism, with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them. With the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah,
with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them.
I mean, so why are they such a protected class? Let me ask you that.
I don't think they are. I think they're a class that get targeted by people like you, and indeed by Kanye. who spewed horrible anti-Semitic nonsense. But yours seems to me to be more insidious because you're literally blaming.
You think Kanye targeted them and not the other way around?
You're literally blaming Jewish people for almost everything that's happened that you don't like in the world. That is the purest personification of anti-Semitism right there. That's what it is.
Well, when you have a religion that promotes supremacy, when you have a religion that says that you are better than other people, and when you have a religion that says it's okay to steal from other people as long as they're not Jewish, when you have a religion that says it's okay to rape people that aren't Jewish,
Yeah, so we have seen the video, and reports of sexual abuse of detainees are horrific. They ought to be investigated fully by the government of Israel, by the IDF. Prisoners need to be treated, prisoners' human rights need to be respected in all cases. And when there are alleged violations, the government of Israel needs to take steps to investigate those who are alleged to have committed abuses and, if appropriate, hold them accountable.
when you have a religion that talks about having sex with, kids that are under 3 years old,
A CBS News investigation has uncovered a loophole that allows accused and convicted American pedophiles to escape justice by moving to Israel. So Ian Lee has been following this for more than a year, and he traveled to Israel for this investigation. He worked with a group that tracks people accused of sex crimes, which estimates dozens of Americans have used this loophole.
So, he's 6'2".
We are on a stakeout looking for this man, Jimmy Julius Caro, 48 years old and wanted on charges of sexually assaulting a 9-year-old girl in Oregon back in 2000 and a 5-year-old girl in Israel in 2001. He's considered dangerous. But these photos are a few years old, so we don't know if he'll look the same. He remains elusive. Previous attempts to capture him have failed.
Obviously, the fear that he would somehow figure out that anyone's looking for him and bolt. He just called his number.
Shauna Aronson got a tip that Caro's expected at this clinic near Tel Aviv.
Who's going to call the
She's with JCW, Jewish Community Watch, an organization that hunts down accused pedophiles who flee to Israel from the U.S., exploiting a process called Law of Return, whereby any Jewish person can move to Israel and automatically gain citizenship. The ease with which pedophiles seem able to use this law as an escape route haunts victims like Mendy Hawk, who says he was abused from age 8 by a teacher at an Orthodox Jewish school in Los Angeles.
So your classroom is right here. How does it feel being back?
I was very anxious and, stressed coming back here, and a lot of memories coming through my mind.
Memories of his alleged abuser, Mordechai Yom Tov, who taught him Hebrew studies when he was just 8 years old.
So in the beginning, he would just rub me outside of my pants, and then I would say about 3 to 4 months later, he started going in.
Reaching down your pants?
Yeah, it's reaching down.
Why did you feel like you couldn't tell anyone?
I was scared. I was ashamed. I just didn't know what people would think of me with the whole situation.
Yom Tov pled guilty in 2002 to sexually abusing and committing lewd acts against 3 other boys. He served jail time, but when he was released, he violated his probation and, according to JCW, fled to Israel with help from individuals within the Orthodox Jewish community. JCW tracked Yom Tov down and confronted him with a hidden camera in Jerusalem, where he admitted to illegally fleeing the United States with help and using a fake passport to enter Israel.
I was supposed to stay for 5 years in the same city. I was supposed to, to be on the side of myself. I was supposed to go every 2 weeks to the police station. I realized I left within a week later.
He had this message for his victims.
I'm very, 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 very sorry.
The other person in this video is Mayor Seawald, the founder of Jewish Community Watch. He tells CBS News Yom Tov's case isn't uncommon in the Orthodox community.
The same thing that's going on in the Catholic Church right now around the world, the exact same thing happens in our community. The rabbis say it's, you know what, he promised he's going to go for therapy, he's never going to do it again. Boom, he's in another community. A few years later, he's at the same thing, and we hear more allegations that the person continued to abuse children.
And often, those abusers end up in Israel.
When you have a religion that talks about having sex with, kids that are under 3 years old.
As a child, my next guest was used also in worshiping the devil, participated in human sacrifice rituals and cannibalism. She says her family has been involved in rituals for generations. She is currently in extensive therapy, suffers from multiple personality disorder, meaning she's blocked out many of the terrifying and painful memories of her childhood, being Rachel, who is also in disguise to protect her identity. My next guest treats ritually abused children in her therapist practice. She feels that the problem is much more widespread than any of us can imagine. Says there's no doubt in her mind that children and adults that she treats are telling the truth. Tina Grossman, we're glad to have all of you join us here on the show. You come from generations of ritualistic abuse?
Yes, my family has an extensive family tree, and they keep track of who's been involved and who hasn't been involved. And it's gone back to like 1700.
And so you were
right.
abused.
I was born into a family that believes in this.
And this is. Does everyone else think it's a nice Jewish family? From the outside, you appear to be a nice Jewish girl.
Definitely.
And you all are worshiping the devil inside the home?
Right. There's other Jewish families across the country. It's not just my own family.
Really? And so who knows about it? Lots of people now.
I talked to a police detective in the Chicago area, and several of my friends know, and I've spoke publicly before. And
so when you were brought up in this kind of evilness, did you just think it was normal?
I blocked out a lot of the memories I had because of my multiple personality disorder. But yes, I mean, it's like if you grow up with something, you think it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought.
So what kinds of things? You don't have to give us the gory details, but what kinds of things went on in the family?
Well, there would be rituals in which babies would be sacrificed, and you would have to,
Whose babies?
There were people who bred babies in our family. No one would know about it. A lot of people were overweight, so you couldn't tell if they were pregnant or not, or they would supposedly go away for a while and then come back.
Now, you were telling us earlier that that the practice with the Kilroy death was a religion called
Palamayombe, which not all people who practice Palamayombe obviously sacrifice. I think what we're looking at is a worship of evil here.
Right.
Taking normal or standard religions and converting them to the worship of evil.
Right. And I just want to emphasize that you don't have to be Caribbean to do it.
No.
Yes.
The other thing I want to point out, not all Jewish people sacrifice babies. I mean, that's not a very typical thing.
This is the first time I heard of any Jewish people sacrificing babies.
When you have a religion that talks about having sex with, kids that are under 3 years old.
What does the Talmud say about pedophilia? In the case of a male child, a young one is not regarded as on a par with an old one, but a young beast is treated as an old one. What is meant by this? Rob said, pederasty with a child below 9 years of age is not deemed as pederasty with a child above that. Samuel said pederasty with a child below 3 years is not treated as with a child above that. What is the basis of their dispute? Rob maintains that only he who is able to engage in sexual intercourse may, as the passive object of pederasty, throw guilt upon the active offender, whilst he who is unable to engage in sexual intercourse cannot be a passive subject. But let's go to the footnote to better explain what I just read. This is the footnote 54b. The reference is to the passive subject of sodomy. As stated, Super 54a, guilt is incurred by the active participant even if the former be a minor. An example, less than 13 years old. Now, however, it is stated that within this age, a distinction is drawn. So what is the age of distinction? Footnote 24. It says, rod makes 9 years the minimum, but if one committed sodomy with a child of a lesser age, no guilt is incurred. Samuel makes 3 the minimum. You see what it's saying here? One rabbi says 9 years is the minimum, but another one says, but if one committed sodomy with a child of a lesser age, no guilt is incurred. But another rabbi says 3 is the minimum. And then when we look at 25, at 9 years, a male attains sexual matureness. 26. The point of comparison is the sexual matureness of woman, which is reached at the age of 3. Wait a minute. Sexual matureness of a woman is at the age of 3. According to their Talmud, an adult man and woman are allowed to have sexual intercourse with kids. Ketubah 11b, a small boy who has intercourse with a grown-up woman makes her as though she were injured by a piece of wood. When I said it before Samuel, he said injured by a piece of wood does not apply to flesh. Some teach this teaching itself as to a small boy who has intercourse with a grown-up woman. When a grown-up man has had intercourse with a little girl, or when a small boy has intercourse with a grown-up woman, or when a girl was accidentally injured by a piece of wood, in all these cases, that's how they treat it. Like she has a splinter. If she has intercourse with a little boy, I'm not even gonna say intercourse, molesting a child, a little boy, they say they're gonna treat it like she has a splinter. It means this: when a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing. For when the girl is less than this, it is as if one puts the finger into the eye. In other words, accidentally poked yourself in the eye. So it's no big deal. But when a small boy has intercourse with a grown-up woman, he makes her as a girl, reduces her to a girl who is injured by a piece of wood. In other words, a girl having a splinter in her hand. Let's see the footnotes. It says, footnote number 1, although the intercourse of a small boy is not regarded as a sexual act. Wait a minute. It's perversion. Although intercourse, no, it's raping, not just no intercourse. It's a raping, it's molesting. Although the intercourse of a small boy is not regarded as a sexual act, nevertheless, the woman is injured by it as by a piece of wood. 6, you see less than 3 years old. We go to 7, an example, tears come to the eye again and again. So does virginity. In other words, it'll come back, she'll grow out of it. So does virginity come back to the little girl under 3 years old. Stuff is sick. This is sick.
When you have a religion that promotes these things and promotes supremacy, I think you're going to have problems. And you see that in Israel. Israel is a manifestation of that religion. And I think that religion is, it's terrible. I don't believe in white supremacy. I don't believe in Jewish supremacy. I don't believe in supremacy at all. And right now, I think you have massive Jewish supremacy.
You sound like a Nazi.
I mean, why do you say that?
That's literally what Nazis would have said in World War II. They would have literally articulated their hatred of Jewish people and the reasons why in exactly the way you've just done.
I don't have a hatred for Jewish people.
You do.
I don't like a religion that says that they're better than other people. And what's that?
Well, you do. You obviously do. It's blatant. No one watching this will draw any other conclusion.
What's your thoughts? Please be respectful with your comments. Also, please click the like, click the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel.
Listen. Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.
We fight as a single, impenetrable unit. That is the source of our strength.
Thank y'all for checking in. This is Jehovah Chronicles number 199. They are who we thought they were. Hope you got something up out of it. As always, all I need you to do is breathe in. Let that light in, because I'm Cosmo, and I'm out.
And oh yeah, put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you're feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh just that Japheth, that Chow Mein, that Papabull, that Tao Mein, since sunset in the arc of Wayne, my brain moving like Tao Zane. So ass above, it's so below, that up and that down thing. This flow is atmospheric, I call that a ground game. See, water is knowledge, so if I'm teaching, you're learning. So how your God make a sun without vortexing current? See, the pattern is ponic, I'm reaching out for my people. Oh, watch me flow through your speakers, you feel the force of the ether. And when the force gets the equal, I'm taking off like an eagle. Police popped the pastor yesterday for pushing Puerto. My DNA is Moshe. Mix that thing with higher water. My spirit rate is OTN. It's just a higher order. Got more light than Kavita. Rap a lot just like Tila. Went from sinner to saint. Shout out my big homie Sela. Got more torque than a sports car. Got more work than a door stop. And the 4 million I make, I'm giving the Dr. Umar. Oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you're feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Super 7 in my rites and ceremonies. I'm married to Jehovah, holy matrimony. Confucius say, in the words of Caillou, before you hit the tomb, be a bridegroom. I only got one question for Miss Susan B. On how to last Ahu when it's now a ennui. Blame my inspiration, I'm just thinking thoughts. But in the way of God's, we gon' keep it short. Why Jesus wanna kill me, Matthew 10:34. Just a couple questions that I'm needing to know. Oh, watch me flow, it's so potent. Set the vortex in motion. Super 7, I'm floating across the Aegean Ocean. Oh, you a Muslim now, so I guess you making salat. Well, I'm an Israelite, I'ma make him at the Shabbat. Got Moses on the bumper, super slap off in my spaceship photosphere. So I stay lit, peace and light to the faith is so yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you're feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah.